the table confirmed Christopher Bledsoe's prediction.
Yep.
It did.
Yes.
It confirmed that it would happen
In 2020.
in 2026.
Did not give us a time.
They took a poop sample.
I was like legit shocked.
And then all of a sudden, it felt like a 300-pound man was standing on my shoulders. I'm like, what is happening? And the weight, and it was dark and fast.
Perfect outline
Yeah,
of a body. Yeah. No.
Welcome to the 108 Effect. This podcast was created as a space to pause, to breathe, and to explore the questions that we don't always have time or permission to ask. Across cultures and traditions, the number 108 represents completion, connection, and alignment. It reminds us that there is a rhythm to life, something both practical and mysterious, that links who we are with something greater. Here, we gather to talk openly about consciousness, intuition, life, death, and the moments that quietly change us. Through honest conversation and shared experience, we explore what it means to trust ourselves, to listen inward, and to live with greater awareness. If you've ever felt a pull towards something deeper, or wondered if there's more to this human experience than what we see on the surface, you're in the right place. So take a deep breath, settle in, and join us as we begin this journey together. This is the 108 Effect.
Hi, and welcome back to the 108 Effect, where we are on location in Alabama. We've been here for a few days now. It's not often all of us get together. We've been together, I think, recently. Dawn and I have been together. And then I know you guys have been together.
Yeah, we were recently together.
Yeah, but for all four of us, it's been like 2 years. So we had a lot of fun. We did a lot of spiritual stuff. And we're going to get into it.
Yeah, there's obviously no secret that stuff happens when you get together.
Yeah.
And I always, when I know you're coming, I'm like, oh God, some good stuff is going to happen.
Yeah.
And so we did have some weird stuff happen.
We did.
We had a lot of weird stuff happen.
Yeah, outside of just kind of having fun, went out on the boat for a while, just had some good meals, that kind of stuff. But getting down to what was that? Yeah. We have a lot of those, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so the first one, if I remember, was about a phone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chloe is
one of the neighbors.
One of the neighbors, yeah. So she's a young girl, and, you wouldn't think, and she's not really into this stuff either. So it's interesting that she heard it.
Yeah.
But we were all sitting at the table, and the next thing.
I was not.
Oh, you weren't sitting
No,
at
I
the
was
table?
downstairs.
Oh, you were downstairs? Okay.
It was good.
It was good, yeah.
Good.
I know.
But it's interesting because how many of us were at the table? Like about 5?
I think everybody was except for me.
Except for you? Okay. The only people that heard it were Chloe and I.
Yeah.
And it very clearly said, "Where is my phone?"
Yeah.
Right.
And
but all the females except for, that's right, because you were downstairs because we thought, well, maybe she said it downstairs.
We did, because when she came back up, we checked with her. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. But
And
I turned around first, and I was like, wait, what? And then I turned back, and Chloe said, did you hear that? And I was like, I did. I was grateful somebody else heard it, too.
Yeah. Well, the only other female was your daughter. Mm-hmm. And we have another guest, but she wasn't feeling well.
Right.
So Julie comes upstairs, right? And we're like, did you say that? Did you say, where's my phone? And the weird thing was she said, I thought it,
I did.
but I didn't say it.
Right.
Right.
We should know better. We should start recording
We should.
the minute we all step into a room together.
Yep.
And so then
Then
in the same night, wasn't it?
it was the same night.
It's
Yeah.
like maybe an hour later, right?
Yeah, or if that. I heard a disembodied voice say, "Do you want to see me?"
Right. And you were like, did you hear that?
I'm like, that was like right in my
yeah.
ear.
And I heard it, but to me it sounded like,
Yeah, you could only hear the
it was like I could
the
hear
timbre
a
of
very
it.
loud whisper, but I couldn't make out what they were saying.
Oh, because
but
it was in my
you're
ear.
sitting right next to her and you didn't hear it.
Right. I was yawning at that moment, so I thought for a second that maybe my yawn
Yeah.
made the noise.
No,
but you
it
guys
wasn't.
heard words.
When I
so.
heard it and I looked over there as it was happening, you weren't yawning.
Yeah.
So I think it was
okay.
just in the moment because I looked over immediately and before it was done, before it finished, you weren't yawning.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so when you hear, "Do you want to see me?" What was your first thought?
I was like, I'm not sure.
Who did you think it was?
I I honestly wasn't sure what kind of entity it was.
Yeah.
Whether it was
Male,
a galactic
female?
being or
Yeah.
some type of different spirit that I don't know.
Yeah.
But it turns out, like, we know that we didn't get a bad feeling. It just was so. It had its own
Right.
energy,
Yeah.
you know, that felt different to me. I'm like, oh, snap.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's talk a minute about what we feel when, like, other people say, oh, I was creeped out or whatever. But for us, we talk about vibration and tingly feeling and everything. So, like, you know, what do you feel when you sense something?
Oh, that's cool. Or did I really hear that? I don't get
But
scared.
do you get like that? Like, I get the staticky feel and everything. Do you have?
I get goosebumps.
Goosebumps?
I get goosebumps.
Yeah.
You know, your hair stands up a little bit.
Yeah.
You get the chills.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
It's different for me every time. Like sometimes I'll get that feeling that the tingles
Yeah.
come down and I'll have my hair stand up on the back of my neck sometimes. Sometimes I'll just get the goosebumps. Sometimes I'll just get a weird feeling. And sometimes it takes me completely by surprise.
Right.
And I don't have any forewarning.
Yeah.
And it'll just happen. But when we are together, it is amplified.
Yeah.
100% amplified. We have more things happen more frequently, stronger. They come through in a
Yeah.
more clear fashion, and we can hear them even more.
Well, one of the things that Dawn is really good at is she gets the sensation, but she can differentiate between, you know, the types of energy she's feeling.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Like sometimes I get this weighty feeling on me, but you kind of like right away knew it was a strange energy. It wasn't something you were familiar
Right.
with. Yeah.
Right. And it was strong.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. There's the amplification there.
Yeah.
But it was like it went through the inside, through every single nerve in my body, and I was like, oh my, you know?
Yeah, you did react pretty
Oh,
quickly. Because
yeah, and
you
I
were sitting
don't
right next to
normally-
me.
And
I just like,
I heard it and immediately looked. And the thing was, it was about yay high. You know, it was maybe about 3 feet high where the voice was coming from. And it was still in the general area that we heard, you know, where's my phone?
It was right in between us.
right,
Yeah.
Right in
and
my ear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's my phone was behind me.
Yeah.
More towards the sliding door.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit further away, but it was very clear.
Well, we all got together, what was it, 2 years ago, same place.
Yeah.
And we saw shadow figures and things peeking around corners.
We did.
And
Well, I think you saw some this time too.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 I was going to
both saw
say
the one at the
we
same
both
time.
saw one at the same time. And what was really weird is very fast moving.
Yeah.
And I saw it from this direction and it went from left to right past me. By the time I turned, there was no way. It was like this. So turning this way, I wouldn't see anymore. Turning this way, I would just see Dawn. And when it goes by, I look at Dawn, and Dawn's reacting to it, and she looks at me. She goes, "Did you see that?" And and it was dark and fast.
Dark and fast, and just like as if one of us were walking. The perfect outline
Yeah, it was
of a
just-
body. Yeah.
yeah.
No hair. No, not
No,
a female.
it wasn't.
It was a
to
male.
me, it was
a male.
Yeah, to me, it was like if you're watching a motion blur. You see the person walk, but there's like trails of the silhouette. So it was like,
To me, it was a full-on black.
okay.
So
So maybe
there was
what I
no-
caught was the tail end of it.
Yeah.
As it walked by.
Well,
Well,
it's interesting how we all see things differently too. So we had this conversation not that long ago. We also saw something together. We experienced something together, but we saw it differently.
yeah.
We did.
But we both reacted at the same time.
Right.
And we saw it. It wasn't a figure or anything like that. We saw a ball, like a ball.
Well,
of-
she saw a ball.
I
I did
did.
not
I saw
see
a
a ball.
What'd you see?
I saw it was more like the motion of light going that way, but it was linear. It had lines in it.
And where was this? Where'd you guys see this?
This was out the door right,
Right
there.
out the door.
When we
Oh,
were-
that was that thing.
That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
that thing.
Okay, I remember you guys reacting to it.
Yeah, yeah.
And we thought it was a a spirit that we have been talking to leave.
Yes.
We should talk about how we first talked, this particular spirit, how he came to be part of the conversation
Right.
that invited him back.
Right.
We were being given a course in how to approach a group. Remember, right? How to approach a group if you're going to read people. We start into a meditation, and immediately in my meditation, I felt different. I wasn't listening to the instructor.
Yeah.
I was just kind of already into that space. And then all of a sudden, it felt like a 300-pound man was standing on my shoulders. I'm like, what is happening? And the weight of that person on my shoulders. And I started to visually see, it was as if he was showing me what he looked like. This is, here's my nose, here's my ears, here's my body. And I remember exactly, he was sitting down, his legs are spread, and he had a belly, like sitting right in the middle of him. And I'm thinking Fred Flintstone, he just had that. And I remember he had big, thick fingers. And, there was all this description. It went into greater detail. And then I said, and you all understand how this happens to me. Sometimes I don't know what I'm going to say until I say it. And I said pie. And I'm like, not the math equation pie, but strawberry, pecan, banana cream. But yeah, so pie. And then I heard J. And to me, it could have been a G, like for George, or J for John. I could not distinguish which way, but J. And then I saw, in my mind's eye, the number 7. And then there were a few more details. And in my mind, I said to myself, do you have a message? Because I also had written down Dawn's name. He said, I never was able to show love. I was never comfortable showing love or even saying love. He said, but tell her I love her and I'm proud of her. And then that was it. And the sad thing is we had 2 more lessons to go through, so I had to hold that in for a while.
Yeah.
So we finally get to the discussion part, and we're discussing, and I was like, did anybody else have something weird happen, with them? And Dawn said that she had...
I had a manifestation bottle of manifestation mist.
Of course
basically.
You did. Yeah. But it got knocked off. It got knocked off the table, right?
Yeah.
And I'll let you tell it from here.
Yeah. So we were getting ready to do our instruction, and we're told to go and ground and start, doing what we were supposed to be doing. And so I was calling in a relative that I wanted to speak with, and this person came in. I'm like, oh, they have the same name, but one's senior and one's a junior. And I'm like, oh, I didn't mean you, Grandpa. I meant Uncle Howard, I said, could you step aside for, because I need to ask him a question, And that's when, unbeknownst to me, he went over and sat on your shoulders.
I said, well, let me tell you what happened to me. And as I described, I really just wrote everything down. So I started reading off what I wrote down. And about halfway through, she goes, that sounds like my grandfather.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, here's a few other things. And I said, pie. And she said, the math pie or the, what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, cherry pie, whatever. And it turns out that your grandmother made pies, and it was your grandfather's favorite dessert. Like not just, he liked pies and, cakes and everything. It was like pie. Pie was his thing. So I said, was there a J or G? She said, no, And we kind of went off. Oh, and one other thing I felt a broken wrist. And so I asked about the broken wrist, and she said she was, that he played baseball. And maybe he broke his wrist during baseball. And I was like, you definitely got to figure this out. You got to figure out the J. And I said, I got the number 7. Maybe that was his uniform number. So there's something that's called, we all have actually done it ourselves, but we've actually witnessed it, called psychic amnesia.
Yeah.
Where if somebody's giving you a reading or something and they're telling you something and they're adamant about it, you're like, no, that's not me.
I literally
Or
don't know.
nope, I don't
what
know
that
anybody
is.
like that. And then
Yeah.
like on the drive home or the next day, they're like, oh my God, it's so
Yeah.
obvious, you know.
Yeah.
So that's referred to as psychic amnesia. So she was, we found within minutes having psychic amnesia.
Oh, yeah.
And she started talking about her grandmother, and she goes, "Oh my God.
What the heck did I not? She had 7 kids.
Yeah,
You know?
7 kids. There's the number 7." And then she goes, "Her name is Geraldine."
Well, that was one of my aunts
Yeah.
was Geraldine.
And it was
with a
like,
G,
yeah.
And they
So-
live in Guttenberg with a hard G, but you know.
So it just, the only thing that we never found out or remains to be seen is the broken wrist.
Yeah, that I haven't gotten confirmation on yet.
It was one of those moments, and I was so psyched the rest of the night because it was one of those moments where until we find out the wrist thing, it was 100% spot on. And when that happens, we're as astounded as we are when we watch another one have that moment.
Because when you were talking, I was like, I asked him to step aside.
Yeah. And he landed on my shoulders.
He landed because he wanted
That is
to.
crazy.
It was
say
very
something to me, yeah.
And then when I gave her the message, she goes, "That's exactly like him. He wasn't one. He was quiet. He was just stood back. He wasn't one to just come right out and say, 'I love you.' You knew it, but it wasn't something that, you heard all the time.
Or ever.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was really special. But he was like, 'I want to talk to you,' and you just pushed me aside."
I'm like, that almost made me, it did make me cry a
Yeah,
little bit,
yeah.
but I was like, whoa.
So that was, I would say, probably the weird thing that happened that week. But let's talk about some more weird things that happened here this weekend.
Well, getting back to the energy ball, which is how we got into this
Oh, that's
conversation.
right.
That's right.
Yes.
ADHD.
So we did something called table tipping,
Right?
which is something that started in the early 19th century and the Victorian era. It's basically a round table where some women get together, or men can do it as well. But you sit into a circle around the table and you put your hands on the table, and the table can tip, or it does tip to answer your questions. For us, it basically tips when it's yes, and it doesn't tip at all if it's no. But it, can be done different ways. But anyway, we did table tipping with our mentor, and that is how this energy comes to be, because your grandfather came through again.
He did.
Yeah. And so what did he say this time?
I can't remember. I knew you were
Well,
going to put me on
no. Well, but one of the things that she asked was that my grandpa Howard that came through? Yeah.
Okay.
And the table said yes. And just to take a second for our fans, our followers that are listening in, we never just go in blindly with something like this, right? We always say only the spirits, entities, whatever, guides with good intentions. We make sure that we're not inviting anything that would be
A lower
dark
frequency
energy.
than
Right.
us.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. We
Yes.
don't want anything
Yeah.
that has
Well,
a
of
negative
course, too,
intention.
the mentor that's driving the whole thing bubbles the house.
Yep.
So nothing can come in
protection.
for
And
protection.
we also assist in
and
bubbling,
us,
too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Nothing
the energy, like the minute we sat down, that energy was alive. Like
yes.
all of us were like vibrating. Our mentor is very good at what she does. Very, very good. This is something she takes serious, and she guides us through the questions. Because if you ask, will I be happy? Well, when?
Yeah.
And that's really up to you.
When?
It has nothing to do with the table,
Right,
right?
right.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you have to ask the questions in a specific way. And she's been doing this for 20 years, 20 plus years, so she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
we've done
you-
it before, so we could not wait. I mean, we were like, because it's not something, I don't think any of us have entrusted somebody else with it. Have you?
I've
I've
never
never
done it
anybody
with
else.
anyone else, but I have done it with our mentor, with other people.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
No.
When it's us,
Yeah.
I mean, the energy is much, much higher.
Yeah.
And
Table
the table
moves,
moves.
it
started to-
rises,
yeah.
yeah.
It started to vibrate the
It
minute
started.
we sat down.
Oh, yeah.
Did y'all
It's like
notice it started to like move across the
Yeah, it started
process?
to move.
Yeah.
That was weird.
Well,
Well, it's
I mean, it's done
done it
that
before.
before.
Yeah, I
that
know
before.
it has, but it's just
that
I never
was-
know what to think about that.
Yeah, it only did that the one time though.
It only did it once, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't
One
remember
time.
what question we asked. I don't remember. Do you guys?
Well, I
Yeah.
believe it was when your former husband came in.
No, that was when well, maybe.
Yeah,
but I
'cause
think
it's
it twisted. It twisted.
twisted.
Yes.
And it slid too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could, it was moving away from me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
to you.
Yeah, over towards you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we all had to move our feet.
Yep. We did.
He wanted to get a little close, I guess.
Yeah.
One of the things that we use the table to do is answer questions we have. We ask questions about our own abilities.
Yep.
You found out that one of your
Kids?
one of your
Guides?
supernatural
Oh,
friends
my
is
guides.
actually one of your guides.
Yes, yeah.
I didn't know if you wanted to say.
Yeah, Sasquatch.
So you call him Sabe.
Sabe, it's an Indian name for the Mi'kmaq. All Indian First Nations people, they have their own name for them. And I started following this psychic medium Indian person up in Canada around Nova Scotia, and he's a Mi'kmaq Indian, and they call him Sabe. And I feel like that's a nicer name than Bigfoot or
You know, I
Sasquatch.
actually looked into the Mi'kmaq, and it was one of our followers that had sent a note in. It says, if you really want to look into the whole Bigfoot thing, look up the Mi'kmaq. And
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that
I'll do
yeah.
that.
So
I'll do that because I have the author's book and stuff, and I
Yeah.
use his tarot cards too.
yeah.
And if we're pronouncing the name wrong, please tell
Let
us.
us know. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
would like to correct it.
Yeah, but that is one of my guides, and there is quite a bit of activity on our property. The property that my husband's family is on has been in the family since 1863, and before that, the Indians were in the area.
So the table
Yes.
was also able to confirm for you what was buried under the rock.
Yes. Yeah, I still am processing that. It is a Sabe. It could be, it's more than likely a juvenile one because it's a small grave, but it is a grave that's probably 5 feet long by 3 feet, you know? And it's just in the middle of the pasture. Well, now it's around trees, but it's overgrown now because there's no cows, but yeah, I just saw it like
Yeah.
2 years ago, and I was just like, oh my. You
So
know,
going back to what you guys saw after it was confirmed that Grandpa Howard had come through, you all saw that ball of light go by.
Yeah, so I was looking at the doors across from where I was sitting while we were doing table tipping, and I saw lights go by. And at first, my little human brain said, oh, there's a car that just went by. Because that's what you think, right?
Right.
And then I was like, oh, that's the lake.
Yeah.
There's no cars
There's
back
no
there.
cars there. It's only at the lake. And then all that happened in a matter of maybe 2 to 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And then I looked, and you had turned too, and
I was looking straight out the window because somebody else was asking questions, and so I was listening, but then I was just staring out the window.
you saw it dead on.
I saw it dead on.
I mean,
and-
I did too, but I saw it. It was more of a like it got my attention, and I looked, and I saw it go by.
yeah.
But I saw a ball of light.
You saw a ball of light. I feel like I saw motion, so it could have been the ball of light, but I saw it in motion moving.
Okay, you saw
But it seemed like it had lines
Okay,
in it. And I was just like, what was that?
and it was
I was like,
bright.
holy crap.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think to say, did
No,
anybody
but-
else see that? But I was glad that you brought
But our
it up.
mentor right away said that might have been
Yeah.
Grandpa Howard
There's-
leaving.
Yeah, and I saw my peripheral vision, and when I looked, I saw it when it was over like a few feet over.
Yeah.
But it was super bright, super ball of,
It was
super
very
bright ball of
bright.
light. And we did end up asking the table for confirmation, was that my grandpa? And it said, yes. Not exactly like that, but I went,
I was just excited. I was looking out the window and saw it,
yeah.
Yeah.
you know.
I think it's always great when somebody else gets to experience it with you, because then you have some kind of confirmation.
Yeah.
Right.
Because if you don't, the next thing you're thinking of is you're trying to explain it away because you're a human being.
But a
and
lot
that's
of
what
our
we do.
questions were just that, like getting some kind of confirmation that something you witnessed. I think we all had a question about that time I saw this, was it this? We all got confirmation or not. One about your little friend.
Yeah, I mean,
That for how long you've believed it to be an alien.
Yeah.
Whereas it's an energy.
well, yeah, it's energy, sentient beings,
Right.
like extraterrestrials. I mean, they can be energy, I think. So I don't know if we were completely off base, but
Right.
in my head, I was using one word,
Right.
when I should have been more expanding more on
Right.
it. So
And so that was you just asked the question, is what I'm seeing is this alien?
Yeah.
And you also learned that you might have been being visited by a couple of different things,
Yeah.
and it's not the same thing each time.
Right.
It kind of, you have to readjust your reality,
Right.
when you figure that out. And
Yes.
you did the same thing. You had asked,
Oh, I asked a lot of questions about Sabe.
my favorite one was if you asked if Sabe came into your house when you're
Yes.
not there. What
But
did you
I've
think about
asked that before.
Yeah.
So I was getting confirmation of that because I think last year I was doing pendulum work and I was asking that. If they watch, if they come in when we're not home, and if they come in when we're there, so I kind of had an idea, and I just kind of wanted to know that.
Well, we should back that up too and talk about that, because we all asked a certain amount of questions. We wrote them down. the
Yeah,
day
if you want to
before.
explain, to anybody listening in,
Yeah.
that's part of how we practice. So kind of set it up for
Yeah.
us how we did this.
Right. So what we did was we all took some paper. We all wrote down some questions that we wanted to ask of the table. We knew we were going to be table tipping in the next day or so. So we just sat down and we did that. And then we got out our pendulums and we asked the pendulums. So we basically asked the pendulums yes or no questions and wrote that down. And then we switched off, which we hadn't done before.
We never done, never.
No.
Switched off the questions.
We switched off the questions
gave
to
our
each
questions
other.
to
Yeah, we gave
another.
our questions to another person, and then they did their own pendulum work with their questions, the other person's questions, and wrote down those answers.
And those were all right on, right? If
Yeah, I was
remember.
100%.
Yeah,
I
I
was
was 100%
absolutely
too.
shocked
Yeah.
because it's the first
So
time I've
everything
ever-
was matching up.
everything matched up between the
And
pendulum
now we go
and
to the table.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was really interesting. I like that we've been doing some different things too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that we can kind of expand on
I
it.
think we had one differentiation. Do you remember what it was on the table?
Between the questions and the table.
Yeah.
Do you know who it was?
No, I don't. I thought it was Dawn.
Yeah, I want to say it was the something about an alien,
Yeah.
I think. But
Because you were a little confused about the answer.
yeah, I was filled with more questions when
Right.
they were done.
Right.
But I do believe that it was accurate. It's just that, like I was using a different word.
I got you. I got you.
Well, that's part of the lessons that you learn when you're
Yeah.
table tipping. You need to ask specific questions in a
Right.
way that the table can answer it. Because
Yeah.
if you ask the question incorrectly, you can get a different answer.
And that did happen.
And it did happen.
You had asked a question. No, I think it was you. You had asked if channeling was your path.
Yes,
right.
I did. And it did
And
not answer.
It didn't answer.
So that's a no.
Right.
So-
So
and I was-
how'd you change it?
Well, what happened was we decided after we did the table tipping that we had a lot more questions.
Right. Right. Right.
Yes.
So we wrote a whole nother set of questions for the next day, and we got back on the table the next morning. And I was able to clarify my question, and I said, is channeling part of my path? And the answer was yes.
Like right away.
Right away.
It moved.
Right away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's a great example of I didn't
Yeah.
ask the question correctly, because is it my only path? And that's the way I asked it first.
Right.
And it was like, no, it's not
You have
your
to be
only
very specific.
You have to
I'm
be very
always,
specific,
I'm always
yeah.
a little don't always understand when the table will say yes, like right away, or it just creeps. It's like, yeah,
It's
maybe.
like,
It's like a partial.
Revisit,
Yeah.
you got to revisit
There's more
that
to
question.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes,
Rephrase
yes,
it.
but
Yeah.
there's a but.
There's a but. There's
Or
more
there's
to
more
it.
to it.
Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Or a possibility
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah. But yeah.
What's so funny is that like when it comes to like when anyone else is asking a question, I'll be like helping you guys ask the question right.
Yeah.
Right.
When it comes
We
to
were all
yourself,
doing that.
it's like I don't know how to answer this question. What do I say?
You did that. You're like, I have questions, but I can't remember what they
I just totally went blank. But then once you get going, then it's just like, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's so frustrating.
It is. It's like the first day we filmed this.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's like on the very first episode, Tina are like, we're like, yeah, let's go. And it's like, hello? Yeah, we're just so timid, and we all did that, you know? So this morning,
Oh my, yes. We were filled. I mean, how long did we stay up? An hour and a half afterwards?
Yes.
At least.
You know,
Oh my
and
goodness,
just
we're up
going
late.
through
Just
questions
talking
and
about
talking
it.
to each other like, okay, now how should I word this? And
Yeah.
how, you know, what
Yeah.
should I ask this? Yeah, put it down on the
yeah,
list. You know, kind
it
of
was
thing.
all like, we even asked if Bob Lazar's story was real.
And
the
it
answer
was?
was yes.
Yes.
And,
and Bashar.
yeah, Bashar was
Bashar's
interesting.
information
That was
was
really
accurate.
That was
Interesting.
really
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah.
I'm almost afraid to talk about it.
Yeah, I don't think that's for us
But
to talk
what
about.
we learned
Right.
is what Bashar, what Daryl,
Anka.
that's his name, because we're bad at names, you know.
Yeah,
you go
no,
back.
that's his name,
Our
Daryl.
producer's like, no, it wasn't Roosevelt, it was Eisenhower.
Right.
We are not professionals.
No, and we never claimed to be. The things that Daryl's channeling under the name Bashar is the truth. He's telling the truth.
Yeah.
But what Bashar is questionable. The table did not like the term alien.
It did not
It
like
did not.
alien at all.
Yeah.
It did not.
It liked extraterrestrial. It responded to sentient being,
Right,
to
but
energy,
did
but
not-
not alien.
No.
Yeah.
Alien, I guess, because it could mean foreign, but that's too broad. I
Right,
guess. Yeah.
right. And it has to be specific, I guess.
Okay. So were you under the impression before that he was channeling an alien?
Yes.
He will tell you.
He
he's
claims
an
that
alien.
he claims that
okay.
he's an alien from
I haven't listened to him that much.
yeah, he claims that he's an alien from another dimension.
Oh, okay.
And his spaceship sits above it's in Arizona. What's it called?
Sedona?
Yeah, but it's Bell Rock.
Bell Rock.
Yeah.
Bell
Rock,
Rock
yeah,
in,
that's-
in Sedona. That's what Bashar claims to be.
Okay.
And, you know, we asked several clarifying questions to see, you know, the answers if we would get what we wanted to hear. And it was interesting because we asked if Bashar was part of Daryl's oversoul.
Right.
And the answer was
His
no.
answer is no.
But from what Daryl says, Bashar is part of his oversoul. He
Yeah.
is him in another timeline, in a future
okay.
timeline.
So it's you know.
But regardless, the information
information is
that is being channeled is correct, and
Yeah.
that is the
That's
important
important.
thing.
And
Yes.
the table confirmed Christopher Bledsoe's prediction.
Yep.
It did.
Yes.
It confirmed that it would happen.
In 2026.
In 2026.
2026.
Did not give us a time.
It would not give us a time.
No.
Because we were going to go month by month. Is it
Yeah.
October? Is it November?
Yeah, and we
wasn't
asked, "Will you
answering.
answer us?" And it said,
Yeah,
"No."
I said no.
I was like, "No, no."
And there were personal questions that we were asking. We got some personal business kind of put away, some answers that you had been looking for.
Yeah.
We found out that you have generations of alien
Yeah.
experience with your family.
Yeah. You know, I've been told that by different psychics, and I'm going to shout out to Madame Vera at the Stanley Hotel. She is legit. She is amazing. I'm not getting paid to promote her. I'm telling you, go see her.
Yeah.
If you're there, see her. She's really good, and she's the one that like originally first told me that your family has been followed
Yeah.
by extraterrestrials
Okay.
for generations upon generations.
Yeah.
So I asked for validation, and yes, it is true. And then I found out other things too.
Yeah.
Which I didn't ever claim that ever happened. But I found out that I actually had been abducted.
Yep.
And it was the time when I was 10.
I remember.
God, I was like sitting there.
Do you
like,
remember
what?
the next question I asked?
Yes.
It was a probing question.
Oh, I forgot to ask when we did it. Oh, I was gonna get you back. Oh man, I know you got probed.
Well, we know for a fact now that you did. They took a poop sample from you. That was funny.
I was like legit shocked. I
Yeah.
mean, not that I'm
think
shocked
we all
that
were.
happened, but I had never claimed that
Well,
happened.
what was
Just only that
shocking
I've
to me is what was happening with your husband.
seen. Right.
You know,
Yeah.
when you
even know
asked if
this
they
yet.
were like curious or not.
Does he watch the podcast?
Oh yeah, he does. But I haven't talked to him.
Well,
since
you
we
don't
did the
have to
table
tell
tipping.
everybody
Yeah.
what he did, but an experience that you had that
Yeah.
involved him was confirmed to a degree,
Right.
in that situation.
And I was like,
um,
whoa, okay.
yeah,
Yeah. But like I knew I'd seen extraterrestrials multiple times. I know I've seen craft. I just didn't know that I was in one.
yeah.
Okay.
There
And
was
not,
a
and
lot
not that I
of
was abducted. It was like abducted and gone for whatever. They took me in the spaceship and was curious about me. Checking, I guess I was one
and
of
your booty hole.
booty,
That's
booty,
all
booty.
right.
Yeah. And we asked, like, were you just curious? Yes.
Yeah, and the answer was yes.
And then I asked, about my children.
Yeah.
If that happened, and only to one. I'm going to leave it like that.
And you asked about your brothers.
I asked about my brothers, and they were not. So I was the lucky one in this generation. But then I asked about my parents because I want to know, okay, which side do they follow?
Mm-hmm.
And it was my father's side.
And that was a surprise to you.
It was a surprise to me. Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna have to have a little talk. when
Yeah.
I get
yeah,
back.
So why didn't you tell me? But
Yeah.
you had told us that he was always not real ready to admit
Tight-lipped.
that he had
Yeah.
some abilities and that kind of stuff. so,
Tight-lipped for sure.
Yeah.
It took me a couple years of
Yeah.
prodding. I'm like, I know. Don't even tell me you didn't, because when are you gonna leave me out here on the ledge by myself? I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
And then he said, well, when I was 4,
Well, yeah,
and then
but
it spilled out.
But you know how many times, especially growing up, either we would rationalize something we saw and convince ourselves we didn't see what we damn well knew we
Right.
saw.
Yeah.
Or we would hear something and everybody's like, oh, you're hearing things. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But you rationalize it away. So it's very possible that he just kind of tucked it away and said, I really don't know if that happened.
Yeah.
Because they're so used to convincing themselves that probably didn't.
And also, that generation, or at least with my family, you didn't talk about stuff like that. And in fact, the family didn't talk about personal things, you
Yeah.
know, let alone paranormal
Yeah.
things. I have to think about that and say, okay, well, that was the time, and this is how our families were, and I get that, but I'm not like that. This push
Right.
was too strong, and I'm like, listen, come on, you're talking to me now.
Yeah.
It's just me and you here. Come on, just let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that made me feel better, that when I finally found out.
Yeah, where it came from,
Yeah.
and that you're not alone in the family.
Exactly.
Yeah, that
Well,
somebody else
and-
experiences
and-
these things.
I know for Tina too, she found out some somewhat life-changing things that should remain personal.
Right.
But what it does is it gave you a different insight and different perspective of what you thought all along.
It changes everything.
It changes everything.
It changes everything.
And
Everything I knew, everything I
Right.
thought, everything I felt, my perspective.
Right.
It changed everything.
And so now, next, you're on a journey to kind of figure out where that information fits in your life. And
Yeah, I think I need to process it because I think that's going to take a little bit. It's
Yeah.
not something you can just process
Yeah.
in one day.
Right.
You have to revisit a lot of things in the past and then move forward from there. But
Well, one of your older boyfriends showed up for a brief moment.
Benjamin Franklin. He did show up. I love Ben. Yeah. We didn't get to ask him a lot of questions.
We didn't.
I would have loved to ask him more questions.
One
about
of our first table tipping together
Yeah.
was at a location where Ben Franklin had frequented and
Yes.
Yep, at the Oliver House.
Yeah,
right? Yep, in
and
Massachusetts.
he came through big time for you, and just briefly.
Beaming.
Oh, she's like, my man showed up. But
Yeah.
just briefly tell our listeners your little.
My little story.
Yeah.
So I am a big Benjamin Franklin fan. I've always been that way, and I never quite understood the pull for him because he's like the oldest founding father, right?
Right.
He's not exactly somebody you would think, in any
Ooh,
way.
he's
would be-
hot.
But for me, I've always been like, he's so awesome. I don't know why.
It's unnatural.
Right.
Just say
I
it.
know. People have always made fun of me. I've Ben Franklin all over my house, literally. And I know everything about him. I've read all the books, everything, the whole 9 yards. Supposedly, he came through, and I knew him in another lifetime, and we had a little fling. So it was a very strange. I never would have asked that question, by the way.
Yeah.
That was our mentor that asked
Yeah.
that question. So I want to put that out there. That wasn't even on my mind.
And she only knows all this information because of everything that came through the table
Right.
that particular night.
It's a very interesting
It's
story.
very interesting.
We got to ask the table last night if he knew that I had all these Benjamin Franklin paraphernalia kind of stuff all around my house where I have the little hanging from the lamps, little stuff Ben Franklin. And I teach my grandchildren about him. And so he said he saw all that.
Yeah.
I got
So
a
that was
question for you.
interesting. Yeah.
Do you know what your name was back then?
I don't. I feel like it started with an L.
Because I think that would be an interesting thing to do
Yeah.
Ancestry now. Follow that to see if you could
Potentially
if you-
find somebody with,
Yes.
yeah.
Another table tipping, have them spell it out.
What was my name in that previous life when I was with Benjamin Franklin?
Yeah.
Right.
I do think that's a really good follow-up question, though.
So this morning, when you woke up,
Yeah. Oh,
you had a visitor.
well, yeah. So, like in the middle of the night, had to use the facilities, and so when I came back, I'm like, "Oh, let me take a drink of water." I set it down, and after I set it down, I hear this woman talking. It said, "Let me in," like period.
Right.
Let period me period
And that's
in
stuff
period.
for every B movie horror film.
Right.
That's
Right.
like,
And I was like, huh? Because, I was rooming with Julie. And I was like, Julie, what did you say? Because I'm like, because it was like with a strong, comment. And I'm like, Julie. And she was sleeping.
Yeah.
And I went,
I woke up.
Julie! I woke her up. I'm like, did you hear that? Of course she didn't because she was sleeping.
Right.
I knew that.
Did
I'm
you
like,
say something?
yeah, and I'm like, did you hear her say, let me in? And I was like, well, no, because I'm going back to sleep, girl.
but let's talk about how we, as empaths, create bubbles, and the bubble that our mentor put around the table tipping, so in you did not bubble out. That bubble
I
was
didn't
still
either.
up.
I left my bubble up. Yeah, so I think that I slept really good last night, except,
except for that.
did
But even the fact that happened, and it doesn't even bother us because we go right back to sleep.
go right back to sleep.
We do,
Yeah.
because this is
Oh,
a
yeah.
normal occurrence
This is-
for us.
yeah,
This is one of the things
it's
that we're trying to get
normal.
across. For some people, maybe this isn't normal, but for us, it's a normal.
Yeah, for those who had never had experienced anything like that, let me in might have made them stay up all night long.
Oh, they
You
would
know.
have moved. They would have burned the house down.
Right.
Stayed at a hotel for the night. It would have been over. But there are still moments, when we just talked about this, how we're all still in awe of things that happen, even though we have treasure troves of things that have happened to us.
Right.
I think being in all of it and being afraid of it, though, are just two different things. For us,
Yeah.
it's very normal
Yeah.
for these things to happen.
Have you
So-
ever truly been scared by something?
Yes. Yes, I was truly scared one time. One of my children is capable of what I believe to be astral projection. This often happens when something like this is going to occur. I hear a noise and I'm woken up out of my sleep, which is what happened this night. I was in my bed and I heard a noise and I sat up and my bedroom door was open. I looked out into the hallway to see what the noise was and I saw what I thought was my child walking down the hallway. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I, wonder if they're sick or whatever the situation is. So I waited for a minute to hear the bathroom and I didn't hear too much. So I thought, well, no, let me get up and go check because I thought maybe they had gotten sick. Mm-hmm. So I go down there and there's nobody in the bathroom. And I thought, well, that's really freaking weird because I didn't hear him go down the steps. The steps are creaky. Mm-hmm. So if he went down the steps, I should have heard him, theoretically. Right. I'm like, well, I got to go find out what he's doing because, he tends to sleepwalk. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, let me go check on him. So I go downstairs and I'm down at the bottom of the steps and it doesn't seem like any lights are on. And I go over to the other bathroom. He's not there. He's not in the living room. And I thought, is he playing video games in the other room? Like, did he turn on the video game? Like, this is crazy town. So I go back in through my kitchen and my dining room to where the kids' room was, and he's not there. At this point, my heart starts to race because I think to myself, what did I see? I didn't think I saw something. I watched it happen. Mm-hmm. I go back upstairs and I go into the first bedroom, which is my daughter's room. And I open the door real quick and she's just laying there. And I startled her. So she looks up and she's like, what do you want?
Oh, the love of a child.
Yeah. I was like, were you just in the bathroom? And she was like, no. Close my door. I said, okay. I closed the door and I thought, this is crazy. So I go down to his bedroom at the end of the hall and I open the door and he is sound asleep. He never moved. Mm-hmm. And that scared me because I thought, what just happened? Like, what did I follow downstairs? Mm-hmm. So I woke my husband up that night and I never do that. And I was like, yo. And he was like, what? And I was telling him and he's like, yeah, okay. It's pretty normal. Like, why are you? I said, I don't know why it rattled me. And I never did know because the next day, though.
Because it was your child. It looked like your child.
It did look like my child. But I had him do the next day the walk by because I wanted to see. So I had to wait the whole next day until it got dark again. And then I made him walk by in two different ways, next to the door and away from the door in the hallway. And one of them matched exactly.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I asked him, did you have any dreams or anything like that? And he really didn't, and sometimes that does match up though. Sometimes there'll be this experience and then we'll find out that he had to go to the bathroom or whatever at the same time or whatever the situation was.
Okay.
In this instance, there was no explanation. But that was the only time I really honestly got scared. I really did get scared that time. That made me nervous. And I don't know why.
Because you didn't understand what was happening, and it was your child.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've talked about astral projection, possibly, or, we have since learned that living souls, just like astral projection, can leave their body and go wherever. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Maybe they go to the bathroom. I don't know. I mean, but it was because it was your child.
Well, that was the first time my husband and I had an experience together because, as I mentioned before, my husband's not a big, believer in this stuff, or at least he wasn't before he got with me. Mm-hmm. So we were on, it's the weirdest thing, we were on a cruise, and we had let the kids stay up pretty late that night. It was one of the first nights they had never been up that late. So we get into the bedroom, and the way that the cruise was, we had the bed where we would sleep, and then right next to the bed is the pull-out. Because the kids were little at the time, so you could put them on that pull-out bed, which was right next to the balcony. We get into bed, and everybody's in their spots, and I was just laying there, and again, I hear a noise. And I hear this noise, and I look over, because I'm like, what's going on over there? And I see my son standing next to the bed. thinking, what is he doing? You know what I mean? And I go to take a breath to say, what are you doing? And my husband's behind me. He's on the other side of me, and I didn't know he was awake. I thought he had fallen asleep already. And he said, hey, and he said his name. He says, what are you doing? And he startled me, so I turned around to look because I didn't know he was awake, and I turned back, and it was gone. The figure was gone, and our son said, he was asleep in bed. He said, what's the matter? And
So did Eric see him disappear?
Eric said that he said that when he looked over there and he said that, I looked back and he looked at me, and then when he looked back, the figure was gone. Yeah. So we did ask the next day, like, you know, and our son said, yeah, I really had to go to the bathroom. So we don't know if that was it, because after that we all went to sleep, and I don't know if he ever got up in the middle of the night. But that was
crazy.
the first time Eric and I had an experience together that Eric could not explain.
Right.
Okay.
We got home and he was like, call your friends. And let's find out what's going on here. He's like, because I don't understand what just happened on the cruise. Because, you know, when we were on the cruise, I was thinking, oh my goodness, like this happens all the time at home, and can we get a break on vacation?
I know, right?
Can it stop just for a week? You know what I mean?
So we talked about what scared you, you know, and that's a real scare. But most of us have, like, you know, something jumped out of the dark or whatever. But we're used to the unexpected. Yeah. And there were a couple of unexpected things that happened this weekend. One was you saw a former...
Oh, yeah. I saw one of your little doggies. Yeah, I was leaving the restroom, and I was like, what? You ran across my feet.
Yeah. And she just...
Little Mia.
She passed away. Yeah, she passed away. It's been... month.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a short.
And we haven't seen her, but we have seen our former pets. They've come back to us, and so it's always a real cool thing. And you had the episode the same. You think maybe the same dog even?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know because I didn't see the dog, but I was sleeping and my pillow moved from under my head, and I was to you know, let people know where I was. I'm in one of the rooms that we took mattresses and put them on the floor. So I'm right on the floor, which, you know, I guess you could think that maybe the pillow would flop out and flop off of the mattress, but this isn't what happened. It got pushed under me, and it made me wake up.
Yeah.
And I was like, my first thought was, I didn't know one of the dogs was down in the basement area. So, like, I don't know how that happened, and then I realized there was no dog in there, and I was in the room by myself.
Yeah, it's just
I don't know.
Another case of anybody else would have burned the house down. One of the questions that I asked was, is my house haunted? And the answer was yes. And my last house.
And it was a quick yes.
It was a quick yes.
Quick and strong.
And that has been, you know, the norm in the last two houses. And I think it's just because they maybe know I can see and hear them, and
they are attracted to us.
yeah. And who knows if the voices we heard was just somebody following you along, or one of the ones that hangs out here said, hey, I like her.
Let me in.
Well, clearly, when we get together, some weird things happen, but we're running out of time. So just want to say thank you for joining in. It's been a party for us this weekend because we love each other so much, and we do love the fact that weird things do happen when we're together, and we're happy to share it. So until next time, bye from the 108 Effect.
Bye.
Night.
Bye.
As we close today's conversation, we invite you to take a moment and notice what resonated with you. Maybe it was a thought, a feeling, or a quiet knowing that surfaced as you listened. Whatever it was, trust that it arrived for a reason. The 108 Effect is about remembering that awareness begins within, that clarity doesn't always come from searching outward, but from learning to listen inward. Thank you for sharing this space with us, for your openness, and for your willingness to explore the deeper layers of life alongside us. If this episode spoke to you, feel free to subscribe and follow along so that you can continue these conversations with us. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and trust the compass within. This is the 108 Effect.